G'day and welcome to the Ball Boys Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Today we are finishing our lineups and minutes projection series with the Northwest Division. Let's go!
Jordan open. Chicago with the lead. Bryant to shot.
Not a game. We talking about practice.
LeBron James with no regard for human life. Anything's possible.
Back out to Allen. His three-pointer. Bang! Curry for three. Wow! Unbelievable. Making it rain in New York. We the North are now we the champions.
Not the destination, it's the journey. Mamba out.
G'day and welcome again to the Ball Boys Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Sports Ethos. I'm your host, Mitch Casey, and you can find me on Twitter at BallBoysNBA and on Instagram at BallBoysFantasyBasketball. Finishing up our mini-series here, going through all the lineups and minutes projections. We've gone through every single individual team, breaking up into the divisions, and today we're attacking the sixth division in the Northwest Division. So if you haven't checked out all the other podcasts, please do so. I'll leave some links up here and there, and you can find them on where you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Just go back to where you found this one, or on YouTube, just click on the channel and scroll through there. But this time, going through the Northwest Division, similar to the last podcast, couple of, mainly just Utah, really, when we get to them, is the main stopping point for this this division here, because they're still trying to make moves, still trying to make that Donovan Mitchell trade. So hopefully, again, disclaimer, recording this on Tuesday, the 23rd of August. So if any trade goes down between now and then, we'll update this and see how we go. So let's get stuck into it, though. Moving into the Denver Nuggets. Now, a couple of guys coming back for this team. We've got starting lineup here on screen if you're watching on YouTube. Jamal Murray, point guard. Shooting guard, I've got Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Small forward, Michael Porter Jr., power forward, Aaron Gordon, and at center, obviously, Nikola Jokic, the reigning MVP. So, a couple of key guys returning there, Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray into the lineup, and KCP coming in to replace who was their previous starter, who was traded in the off-season. Who was their previous starter? That was at Washington, wasn't it? It was Will Barton. That's right. That's who was there. So obviously he's coming in and replacing Will Barton. You could maybe have someone like a Bruce Bowen Jr. or a Bones Highland in there potentially, but I think that KCP just provides a bit more of that 3-and-D role, which I think they need this position to be when you've got someone like Nikola Jokic, and those self-creators maybe better suited off the bench like a Bones Highland. But it probably is the only spot that is up for debate when it comes to the starting lineup. Sorry, Bruce Brown. Did I say Bruce Bowen? Bruce Brown is who I meant there. But he's probably the only one that's contentious in the starting lineup. The return of Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. are big inclusions for this team. Jamal Murray will start with first. Obviously, he missed the entire season, ACL, in, I think it was February or March last year. So it's been nearly 18 months since his injury and surgery. So I'm expecting him to be fine. He was actually just here in Australia, went to a footy game down in Melbourne, so shout out to you, Jamal Murray. Thanks for visiting our great country. But he should be fine. He's moving around well. I think he's going to be good for training camp to go. The Denver Nuggets might be cautious with his minutes, might rest him on some back-to-backs early in the season, but I expect come the second half of the year, he'll be no restrictions, playing his full allotment of minutes. I've got him listed at 32 minutes a night. It might look more like a 30-minute sort of restriction early on, but then as the season gets on, he'll push up to 33, 34 minutes per night, and I think it'll settle down at about 32. I think he's basically going to pick up where he left off last season, which was a top 40 kind of guy. It'll be rocky at the start. The percentages might be a bit poorer. You've got players that weren't there last time when he was playing, like Aaron Gordon, KCP, but I don't think they're huge usage absorbers or anything like that. Michael Porter Jr. was doing his thing last time Jamal Murray was there, so I don't think they're going to cancel each other out. So I'm pretty confident that he's going to be okay. I wouldn't be drafting him at that spot, take a bit of a discount, but he definitely is someone that could easily be a top 50 guy this season. Michael Porter Jr. Now, I will say, I don't like saying I told you so, but I did tell you so last season that Michael Porter Jr. was going to be a bust. I definitely did not see him busting that bad. He obviously played 9 games, and in those 9 games, he was terrible. Obviously, the back injury was the reason, had surgery on that. We're left to assume that the back injury was obviously bothering him for the entire season. Didn't say anything about it, no news about it in the preseason. It was sort of just like, oh, yep, one day, yep, my back's been bothering me. Percentages were horrible. And when those percentages go down, which is what I said in the preseason last year, he was clinging onto a lot of value, shooting a high volume of shots at I think he was shooting like 53% field goal percentage the year before. A high volume of 3-point percentage as well. That was always going to regress for me. Now, I didn't think it was going to go down to sub 40%. So take that with a grain of salt as well. But he was always someone that I was a bit wary of. So the way I see it is he's somewhere in between. I sort of think he's like a mid to high 40s in terms of field goal percentage, mid to high 30s, maybe a low 40s in terms of 3-point percentage. So he's going to be probably like a 60 to 70 guy in terms of a per game rank. You do have that injury risk, so I would be trying to draft him after that. We're watching him in preseason. We're listening to news, although like we experienced last year, they might not come out with much information early on. But I do expect him to get back up to over 30 minutes a night. He's a key part of their team, and they're obviously going to be trying to go for the championship this year. They have the team to do it, and I think they need to get him up to speed to do so. So I do expect him to be reaching his 30 minutes a night. 31, I've got him listed here. And I think he's definitely someone we should be drafting. But I would be wanting to draft him closer to pick 100 than I would be to pick 50, just because I was never that high on him to begin with, and now we've got another reason for him to be more of an injury flag with back-to-back back injuries, pardon the pun there. And then Aaron Gordon, he's never been good at fantasy. I wouldn't even bother, honestly. He's not someone who's just got a fantasy game about him. 31 minutes a night, who cares? He's not going to give you fantasy stats. So just not an Aaron Gordon guy. Never have been, and I don't think I ever will be. So 31 minutes a night, I'm still leaving him on my waiver wire. And then obviously Nikola Jokic, number 1 pick, 33 minutes a night, same as last year. He'll do his thing. Not worried about those other guys coming back. He was still the number 1 guy by a fair margin when they were there the year before. So, yeah, Nikola Jokic, unquestioned number 1 this year. Their bench, I've got Bonesy Highlanders coming in for their backup guys, the 6th man in the 26-minute per night role. They don't really have much in the way of a backup point guard, so I think he's going to get a lot of those backup point guard minutes, and also playing a little bit at the 2 as well. Obviously, Jokic runs a lot of the guard or playmaking duties, I should say, but Bones will be there, and Bruce Brown will be their other main contributor. And then I think, similar to a few other teams, I think this is going to be a 9-man rotation with Jeff Green, and then one of either Zeke Naji and DeAndre Jordan as the backup center behind Jokic. I think it should be Zeke Naji because DeAndre Jordan is terrible, but I don't know if that's going to be the case. I think my gut tells me that it's going to start as DeAndre Jordan, and then when they realize that he's terrible, it's going to be Zeke Naji sort of a month or 2 into the season. But either way, I don't think either guy has much in the way of standard league value. Zeke Naji is obviously a bit more upside. He's got plenty more to offer, but the minutes are just not going to be there. So, but ones to keep an eye on for deeper dynasty leagues, at least. And Jeff Green, free throw percentage booster, but yeah, not enough minutes to trouble standard leagues. Let's move on to the Minnesota Timberwolves. A big trade for them, obviously, bringing in Rudy Gobert. So it does shake things up a little bit. Their depth is challenged a little bit more this season. So their starting lineup, you've got 4 of the other guys that were there last year. D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, Karl Anthony Towns, and Rudy Gobert. I'm expecting Anthony Edwards to be up there in terms of the minutes per game this season amongst the NBA. I'm expecting a big season from Anthony Edwards. I really like what I've seen from him, and I think he is going to take this team as far as they're going to go. It's going to be on his back, and I do expect the last couple of seasons, Cat was their number 1 guy in usage. I expect that to tick over a little bit more to Edwards this season, and I do expect a decent jump in points per game and value for the Ant-Man this season. Russell's going to do his thing. There's not much in the way of a backup here. You've only really got Jordan McLaughlin behind him, so I think he'll still get his 32 minutes. Jaden McDaniels is an interesting one. I think he's going to see an increase in minutes. I think he was in the mid to high 20s last year, so an extra 4 or 5 minutes per game for him should boost his value. He doesn't have the best fantasy game, though. I was high on him last year, and I still am really high on him as a player, but I think we've got enough data now to show that he's a better defender than he is a defensive stats guy. He'll get you a steal and a block, but he's not going to get you that 1.5 steals, 1.5 blocks, which we really would need because he's not a huge... he doesn't get assists. He's actually a poor rebounder as well, and with Rudy Gobert coming in, that's just not going to change. He'll hit a 3.5, so he's going to be that 1-1 guy with low volume, everything else. So it's fine. I don't think there's a whole lot of enormous upside there, but he should be there or thereabouts, the top 100-ish, without pushing too much higher, unless there's an injury to probably either a Karl Anthony Towns or probably Karl Anthony Towns would be the biggest thing to boost his value, but yeah, there would have to be a few things go his way for him to really push high up into the top 100, and I don't really see that happening. But someone who I do like, and I do think he's there is that little bit of upside that he just develops into something that we haven't seen yet, but it's hard to project and to draft based on that just hope of something developing. So at this stage, he's kind of just like that safe top 120, close to 100 kind of guy, who's not going to really hurt you anywhere. And then their bench, Kyle Anderson is going to be their guy coming off the bench as the sixth man. Jalen Noel, Jordan McLaughlin, and Taurean Prince are there. I've got Naz Reid out of the rotation because I think they're going to play a lot of staggering minutes between Karl Towns and Gobert. You might see Reid come in every now and again if there's some foul trouble. I'm not sure. He could earn maybe like 8 to 10 minutes, taking some minutes away from like a Noel or a Prince. That could be the case. In any way, I'm not excited about any of them. Kyle Anderson maybe has enough back-end value to maybe stay on your roster, but in drafts, I want more upside at that end of the point. So I wouldn't be bothered in drafting him, but he might be someone that you add on later if you find out that your last couple of picks are shit and you just need someone who's going to be consistent. And I think Kyle Anderson might be able to do that, but it's not all very exciting. So that is the Minnesota Timberwolves. Let's go on to the OKC Thunder. Now, I think with the starting lineup, the only position that's up for debate here, in my opinion, is the power forward position. I've got Darius Bazley there. It's almost a moot point. I don't think that if it was Bazley, if it was Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, I don't think it matters. If it was Pokusevski, it would matter. I think if Poku was able to get that starting position, he would have fantasy value, but I just don't see them playing a starting front court of Poku and Chet together. I think you're just asking for trouble there, and I think obviously you're going to prioritize a Chet Holmgren who has obviously they've invested a second pick in the draft in, so I don't think you can expect Poku to be starting next to Chet. So I've got Bazley there as a bit more of that mobile, athletic forward that will play next to Chet Holmgren. So I've got them there. Everyone else is kind of similar. Giddy, you might see an extra couple of minutes per night. Shea's going to do his thing. Let's talk about Chet.
G'day guys, I just thought I'd cut in real quick here. Obviously, when I recorded this podcast previously, it was before the Chet Holmgren news, so just adjusting my minutes projections for the OKC Thunder. Obviously, Chet Holmgren going out sucks. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to see anyone really pop into those minutes and become super fantasy relevant. I think Giddy, Shea, and Lou Dort all kind of stay the same. Maybe you see an extra minute or two go to Shea and Giddy just to keep their star players out there a little bit longer. I think the guy that moves into the starting lineup is a Jeremiah Robinson-Earl type. So someone who can start as their center, but it wouldn't surprise me if they started with the Pokusevski out there, although I think they see him more as a power forward, small forward sort of type, with his ability to dribble the ball and pass, compared to compared to a Chet, who was a bit more of a rim presence as a defender and also a rebounder, whereas Poku I don't think really has that ability like a Chet does. Robinson Earl is by no means a huge hulking center or anything like that, but I think he is for me at least, the favourite to be the starting player next to Darius Bazley as their starting front court. And then I do see players like Poku, Jalen Williams getting a few extra minutes. And then I think Jalen Williams will enter the rotation a little bit. You might see a little bit of Ousmane Dieng, although I think he's probably going to spend a bit more time in the G League early on. But as the season goes on, you might see him enter the lineup a bit more. The big question mark for me is Derek Favors and what they're doing with him, or even a Mike Muscala. They could throw in some veterans into the starting lineup or even on the bench, or they could be out of the rotation completely. So there's a lot of different ways that this team can go. Bottom line, though, I don't think there's much fantasy value outside of Giddey and Shea. Maybe you've got Lou Dort at the very end of a draft in a punt field goal percentage situation. Maybe players like Jalen Williams, the guard type, and Poku are flyers in your last round. But outside of that, there's not really a whole lot to like here for me for the OKC Thunder. So, sucks that the Chet news happened. Before the news, I had him as a top 50 player, and I would be happy drafting him around 40, 45. So, that's where I would have had him. But yeah, not to be this season. So, we'll cut back to the next team, which is the Portland Trailblazers.
Okay, we got Damian Lillard coming back. I think Damian Lillard will pick up where he left off. He obviously had the surgery last year. The team took that opportunity to tank, get a high draft pick, but they've retooled. They've got Jeremy Grant. They've re-signed Anthony Simons, who had a breakout season. They've re-signed Yusuf Nurkic. Did they re-sign? Or Yusuf Nurkic is still there, obviously, and They've just made some moves that make me think that they're going to try and push for the play-in. Oh, so they obviously re-signed Damian Lillard for an extension. This bloody camera, I tell you what. Apologies, guys, for you watching on YouTube along. And for my podcast listeners that keep having to listen to this camera. But camera's back now. So what I'm thinking with Damian Lillard is that he's going to pick up where he left off. I expect him to be getting close to 34, 35 minutes a night. He says he's feeling better than he was before the surgery. And I don't think he's the kind of guy to rest or play fewer minutes than he can. So I see him being a first round guy again. Now, it's a little risky. He is on the older side. He's on the wrong side of 30, but I don't expect that we're going to see a huge drop-off from Damian Lillard, assuming that he is healthy and that he's playing in preseason games and he's doing those sort of things that check those boxes. And I expect him to do that. So I've got him at 35 minutes a night. Simons at 32 minutes a night. Maybe a little bit of a risk that people are overhyping him, thinking about last year. I think Lillard coming back does hurt Simons a fair bit. He doesn't have the steals, doesn't have the rebounds or blocks to keep his value up high. So he's a late mid-round guy to me, more than like an early mid-round guy, just because of that Lillard factor. And yeah, 32 minutes a night, I think he'll be up there, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's more like 30 a night. I don't think he is just taking CJ's role per se that was there last year. So just to be a little bit cautious around that. At small forward, I've got Josh Hart. This could easily be Nasir Little. I've gone with Josh Hart because he started and played heavy minutes down the stretch last season. But Nasir Little could easily be this role here. Now, Josh Hart would be the better fantasy producer with his rebounds and defensive stats. So in 28 minutes a night, he's definitely someone that we can draft. If Nasir Little is the starting small forward, I'm less excited because he doesn't have that per minute production that Hart does. Either way, I still see them both in like the mid to high 20s in minutes. But I definitely would rather see Josh Hart starting for his fantasy value. So definitely one position battle for us to watch in the preseason. And then we've got Jeremy Grant and Yusuf Nurkic to round it off. Yusuf Nurkic is a funny one for me. I've been trying, I've been keen on him for a number of seasons since that bubble little flash that we saw where he was a first-round guy and had the blocks and the assists and the steals, but we just haven't seen that since then, and it probably was just a bit of a flash in the pan now, but he is still someone that's a good permanent producer with his rebounds, his assists as a big guy. He can get you close to a steal and a block each as well. Obviously, he's more of a punt free throw guy. He played 28 minutes a night last year. They don't really have a backup center. Sure, you've got like Drew Eubanks, Trendon Watford. I mean, do you really want to be giving these guys 20 minutes a night? I don't think so. And then the question is, how many minutes a night are you going to play as a small ball? And then who's your small ball center? Is it Jeremy Grant? Like, are we doing that for, 15 minutes a night? I don't see that either. So I think 28 minutes a night is his floor. I think you're not going to get less than that. I could see it go up a little bit from last year, and I could see him having a bit of a bounce-back season. It sounds dangerous because I feel like I've been saying this for 2 seasons now, but I could see that bounce back up. I'm not expecting those blocks or steals to be there, so that's fine. But I do think that he's someone that if you're punting free throw percentage could provide top 50, 60 value, and people I don't think are going to be very keen to draft Nurkic. So someone I'm watching to see how they rotate their minutes with the backup center and what they're doing there, how often they go to a small ball lineup in the preseason and how willing they are to put Jeremy Grant at the 5. Because if they're not doing that very much, I think Nurkic could be in for a decent season in 30-plus minutes a night. So we'll see. We'll watch that one again. Let's go to the bench. Like we talked about, Nasir Little is their guy, 25 minutes a night in a 6-man role. Gary Payton should come over and do a similar role to what he did in Golden State last year, getting close to 19, 20 minutes a night. Defensive guy. I think he's going to be really valuable. I could even see that go higher and Simon's minutes come back a little bit. That could definitely happen. It is a small threat for Simons' minutes because Gary Payton is an exceptional defender, and this team needs a bit of defense, especially at the point, to help out Damian Lillard, because obviously Lillard's not the best defender. So I could see Gary Payton's minutes actually be higher than this. We'll see. But at the moment, I've got him at 19 to get those other guys above 30, but one to watch. And then I've got Shaedon Sharp at 14. I think they'll find some minutes for him, but he's not going to be 20-plus this season, I don't think. Or at least until if they find themselves in a position where they're not going to make the playoffs, then it's very clear that's going to happen. You could see Sharp's minutes come up a bit higher, but while they're competing, and I think they'll be doing that at least until the All-Star break, Sharp's minutes will be sort of stuck in that mid-teens kind of range, and then Winslow's going to be your backup power forward for Jeremy Grant. So nothing super exciting there either. All right, and let's finish this off, guys, with the last team and another team that hopefully this information is still relevant in the Utah Jazz. Of all the teams that I've done so far, this might be the one that I'm the least confident in, and there's probably, and I'm the most confident that they're going to be making moves throughout the season because I believe that they're going to be going full tank mode. And it doesn't make sense to be rolling out Mike Conley and Bojan Bogdanovic and, even Donovan Mitchell out there. I think they want to try and get a bit of value on these guys while they can. Jordan Clarkson's another one. Rudy Gay, all these guys, they don't really belong on a roster like this. So this will be definitely a watch and wait situation. I'll put the starters up here. You've got Mike Conley, you've got Donovan Mitchell, Bojan Bogdanovic, Jared Vanderbilt, and Walker Kessler. Walker Kessler is the interesting one, the rookie. Shot blocking, big, good field goal percentage, decent rebounds. I've got him at 25 minutes a night, and in that role, he will be a top 100 guy. Now, I'm not confident in it. It could change night to night. But definitely one of my biggest preseason watches, whether it's him or Azubuike as their starting center, or if they make another move and get someone else in. At this stage, I don't know who else they're going to do outside of Walker Kessler. So that's who I've got there. So if that's the case, and you're sort of drafting, and he's still the starting center at that point, he has really good value and could be a bit of a steal in drafts. The other guy I think could be a bit of a steal in drafts is Jared Vanderbilt. I really like Vando. He's a great rebounder. He's an excellent steals guy. Good with his field goal percentage, low turnovers. He'll get you nearly a block a game. Low points, low assists, no threes. So that might put some people off, but in a punt point situation, really like Jared Vanderbilt's value. So definitely someone, if he gets those minutes close to 30, what I've projected here, he'll easily be a top 100, top 80 kind of guy. So, and then Donovan Mitchell, who knows where he's going to be playing. But right now I've got him here on the Jazz playing 34 minutes a night, and he'll be Donovan Mitchell. He'll be sort of that top 30 kind of guy, top 40 kind of guy, better in a punt field goal percentage build. So we'll see what happens. And Mike Conley, he'll be a back end kind of guy for your assists and threes. And that's pretty much it. On your bench, not excited about any of these guys. Jordan Clarkson, points and threes streamer, might have some back end value, but again, low upside.
Last little edit here, guys, just for the Utah Jazz. Following their trade with the Lakers, obviously they've sent Patrick Beverley out, and they've taken back Taylor Horton-Tucker as the main piece they got back in that deal. So honestly, I think it's a bit of a like-for-like trade. I think that you've still got, obviously, the starting lineup I don't think changes at this point. I would expect them to still roll out with Conley and Mitchell as their starters. And Taylor Horton-Tucker fills in on the bench. I think he's a key contributor off the bench between here and Jordan Clarkson. But I'm not expecting him to come in and be the guy that they run everything through. The only other thing about this Utah Jazz is that they are, of course, still very much up in the air with their rotation and what they're doing with Donovan Mitchell. I'm expecting very much so that Bojan Bogdanovic and Mike Conley are dealt this season as well. There's no point for those teams holding on those guys. So lots in this rotation still in flux, but my thoughts on Taylor Horton-Tucker, I expect to see him getting at least 20, 22 minutes a night. He's a decent flyer in the last pick of your draft, but I'm not expecting him to just waltz in there and demand high usage and minutes in the 30s or anything like that. But he is someone that I'm keeping a very much close eye on during the preseason. So, yeah, those are my thoughts for Taylor Horton-Tucker following the trade.
Azubuike, maybe. If he's starting and he's playing 30 minutes a night, he could have a bit of upside, but we definitely, as fantasy managers, we want Walker Kessler being the one starting and not Azubuike. So let's cross our fingers for that, but yeah, lots still to play with this Utah Jazz team, and definitely one of the ones that I'm watching the most closely come preseason. So that will do it for us today, guys. Thank you for tuning in, and that will complete our mini-series on the minutes projections. Soon we're going to be getting into some mock drafts. I'm going to be joined by Josh Lloyd on a 9-cat, 12-team mock draft very shortly. We're going to be going through some early value picks, some early busts as the rankings change over on the different websites, and then getting stuck into all sorts of other fantasy goodies closer to the season. So please make sure, if you haven't already, go over to Apple Podcast, give us a 5-star rating, tell us something cool you like about the podcast, give the video a thumbs up, subscribe, notifications on. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.